Marilyn, do you have any thoughts on just something we should keep in mind to steer clear of?
Technology is so seductive, not just for kids, but also for its developers. And I think that that's really the scary part, that we make things irresistible, we make them entertaining, or we just make them because they're fun to make. We have to be very mindful, continuously disciplined about what we're trying to get done, what people pay attention to, they learn. You want to make sure that what your technology's helping them attend to is what they need for them to learn. Sesame Street was genius at this,
So being
right?
mindful.
Because it was
Thank you.
genius at getting kids to do it.
Thank you. So I'm kind of interested in getting a question from Second Life. And is it back here? Is there a microphone? We can get a question from someone in.
Hi, I'm Tashana Joseph from Global Kids, and this question comes from Steve on the web from Boston. How can digital media support parents to read with their children?
It's a great question. The parental involvement piece. Does anyone want to tackle that? Oh, the question was, how can new technologies help parents to read with their children? Anybody want to dive in on that one?
Well, I'd like to push one more time the business of giving the computer ears, of building an electronic lab. It makes it so all the resources available on the computer are available for tutoring and learning by any age group.
I think the other piece too is defining reading, that reading could happen through the media in addition to a book, because the social marketing research that we've done with Ready to Learn tells us that parents of our higher poverty kids are not interested in reading to their kids. They feel they don't have time, they feel it's a school's job, and frankly they've told us, hey, we're not going to do it. But there are ways that they can interact with their kids and they can use media, which, keep in mind, some of our parents are only 23, 24, 25-year-olds themselves. They're much more willing to hop on board.
So just building on what Jane said, we've done a lot of research in at-risk communities, and what we've learned is we need to go where they are and give them the tools that they need. And so we've come up with all kinds of games that they can play with their kids. We've taught them how to make a trip to the grocery store a literacy experience, and what to do in the car when all your kids are in the car. And that all of our public service announcements and our outreach to them is about things that they are telling us they're willing to do versus those things that they're not willing to do.
It strikes me too on the language piece. If you give parents more language to use with their kids, then they're building forward. So just by experiencing things online, parents may be able to gain some more of that and be able to point things out. So let's open it up here. Is there a burning question that you may have? David Kleeman, the American Center, Children and Media.
Thank you. You took care of that for me. First thing I wanted to say is in response to Mr. Trilling's challenge, I really wish that Ed Palmer was still with us to update his book, A Crisis of Neglect, because it would be a great way to find out why we're not making the advances we should. And I'd like to follow up with a question to you as well. You talked about global and local, and I'm actually speaking at the BBC about that next week, so I hope you can help me out. What do global and local mean to today's kids when a child in New York who's a skateboarder may have as much in common with a child in Tokyo who's a skateboarder, much more than he does to his next door neighbor, when kids code shift throughout the day? What do we mean now by global and local?
Yeah. Well, a great example is the ThinkQuest competition that the Oracle Education Foundation runs. Students work in teams internationally on a topic of interest to that team. And they work for months, day and night. And they don't actually physically meet until they come to the awards ceremony in San Francisco. And it's an astounding experience when you see these kids kind of readjust. There was no accents online, and they didn't really, have to engage socially in face-to-face. It takes about a day and a half for them to readjust, and then they're really tight. So that local piece of them meeting together is just as important as the global piece where they're connecting together online. And we need both for a really rich learning experience.
Thank you. Take one more question, and then I think we'll unleash to the buffet. So is there maybe one more from Second Life then, please. Is there a microphone coming? Okay, thanks.
From Sidewinder Linden, in Second Life? How do we enable and encourage the educational system to be as connected to the kid culture as PBS has consistently managed to be?
Did everyone hear that question? We kind of connect to the culture the same way PBS has, but we do that within the educational system. So who up here might want to mention? Yeah, Nicole, please.
I'll start. I think one of the things is we have to think about the school as a node in a student's life and think about all the places where students spend their time and figure out how to do the connection and not feel that the school has to be the place where everything is taught. And I think once we can release some of the pressure on schools to do everything, then I think they might be more open to letting in some of the new media and other things in.
That's great.
I was going to say, let PBS run the schools. That'd be interesting.
There we go. My colleague Rob Lippincott is going to speak a little bit later about how can we bring some of the pop culture and wonderful resources we have into schools, and how can we make it more friendly for teachers. So that's what he's working on. You'll hear a little bit about that later.
Thank you, everybody. Great panel.